Hello, this is Inside the Press Box with Sunil Sunder Raj for the Everyday Fan Sports. I'm happy to be speaking with Eli Gardner, the head coach of the Stonehill College Skyhawks football team. Coach Gardner, once again, thank you so much again for taking some time out to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Hey, Coach Gardner, congratulations. Off to a 2-0 start. I was just taking a look at the numbers. I mean, you guys have dominated so far. I think outscoring the opponents 89-34. This is a well-experienced group here. You have, I think, 50 upperclassmen, a bunch of fifth starters returning this season, Coach. Can you just talk about this year's team so far?
Yeah, obviously we not having a season at all last year, there's some things that were out of our control, and we were able to use that time, I feel, wisely in terms of developing our team and getting in the weight room, getting them on the field. We have a number of fifth-year seniors that are returning, that are experienced football players for us, that are great leaders, and that's really, been the story for us, is to take the steps forward that we needed to take regardless of the circumstance this past year with COVID. So really pleased with how the team has come out of the gate here. We've started fast in both of our games. We've been able to run the football and stop the run in both of our games. And obviously we finished, right? Anytime, they haven't been perfect. They haven't always been pretty, but if you want to learn from anything, you want to learn from a victory for sure. So just pleased with obviously the outcome, and obviously we have a lot of work to do and a lot of progress to make moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, just a couple players who you want to talk about, Coach Gardner. First, your quarterback, fifth-year Anton, Stone King, 430 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. You alluded to the running game. I said the combination of, senior Justin, Felder, 360 yards, I think 8 TDs. And the fifth-year, running back, Brian Kearns Jr., 189 yards in the TD. And then also your wide receivers, and what was so impressive about the wide receiving core, Coach Gardner, is that they're young players. I mean, we're talking about freshmen and sophomores here, between Chris Domerkent, sophomore Cameron Alves, and freshman Bryson Carter. So if you can just, I guess just talk about all those players.
Yeah. So, I mean, Anton Stone King was our starting quarterback, his true junior year in 2019. Coming out of camp, he was in a quarterback battle at the time, and really split time the first game or two of the season, and then really established himself and settled into a great rhythm and had a great junior year. Obviously COVID took away his senior year, but he was very quick to make the decision to come back and want to play his fifth-year senior year, and he's made a lot of progress in the last 2 years. I thought he was a little rusty that first game, made some really good throws and some really good decisions, and some obviously he wanted to have back. And I think you saw him take some really great strides forward into week 2. He was on point this past weekend. He just does a great job of, one, kind of setting the the mindset on that side of the ball. Particularly, he's very even keeled. When you look at him, you can't tell if we're up by 40 or down by 40. And he's very reliable as a leader from that sense. And I think the guys feed off of that. And he's just very, very true to the scheme. He makes really good decisions. And we do put a lot on him to make the decision whether we are running the ball or not, whether we're handing it off or whether we're pulling it, throwing it, some of our RPO schemes, or just getting us in the right call at the line of scrimmage or the right protection. So, it's great to have a guy with experience back who's a leader and a captain for us, under center. At the running back position, I mean, Justin Felder and Brian Kearns are two of the best in our league. Brian was a starter for us in 2018, 2017, and then 2019 was his senior year, and he had to suffer a season-ending injury the second game of the season, and that's where, at that time, Justin Felder stepped in and had a terrific year, and was the MVP of our league and led the league in rushing and really established himself. And Brian, recovered from his surgery the following year and really used that COVID year that we had to get healthy, get stronger, and both those guys are playing at a really high level right now. Justin obviously had 5 touchdowns last week and set a school record for us, and Brian was able to get in the end zone last week as well, which was huge because it had been a long time, for him. So, both those guys are very talented backs. I think they feed off each other really well right now. And I think in some ways they're competing with each other, which is good, right? That's what keeps practice, the participation in practice elevated. And that's what's preparing them for Saturdays. At the receiver position, like you mentioned, we have a lot of young guys. I mean, we started, 2 freshmen and a sophomore this past weekend. And, for our sophomore class, just like our freshman class, like, this is week 1 and week 2. They didn't have a season last year as a freshman, when they were freshmen here on campus. So, Cam Alves caught a touchdown pass in week 1. That was his first career college football game. Chris Dahmer can't. Obviously had a big game for us this past weekend and had 2 touchdown catches, and one of them was like a highlight reel catch with one hand. And Bryson Carter, earned a starting spot in week 2. Runs really good routes. He's smaller, he's shiftier, he's got great hands. The best thing too, and you'll see it in a lot of those touchdowns, we had 6 rushing touchdowns. Those guys are mixing it up in the run game and blocking for our guys too, which is huge. They're finishing hands-on. They're all really great competitors. They all have great demeanors. They don't ride the wave emotionally. They're locked in, and that's what's going to keep them getting better every week. So a lot of talent, a lot of young talent in that wide receiver room for sure.
Yeah. Before I get to, the defense, Coach Gardner, I wanted to ask you about Brian. It's such an inspirational story. He's from North Arlington, New Jersey, attended and graduated from St. Joseph Regional High School in Montville, New Jersey, played on the Green Knights, football team. And I didn't want to, skip over, name one of the 3 Week 1 nominees for 2021 Mayo Clinic Comeback Player of the Year Award. As selected by the College Sports Information Directors of America. To be in that same group, quarterback Jack Cohn of Notre Dame and Baylor University linebacker Terrell Bernard is just, that's unbelievable. To know he, coming back from a season-ending, knee injury back in 2019, I think week 2 against University of New Haven. And then also, I said academically, a business management major, and I think I was reading named to the Northeast 10 Conference Academic Honor Roll, 6 times. I mean, can you just talk about, the impact, that Brian has had, on this program and just, what he means, to this team?
Yeah, obviously, like you mentioned, Brian's a Jersey guy through and through. I recruited Brian when I was a position coach prior to becoming the head coach. And at the time, Augie Hoffman was the head coach at St. Joe's, who's now at Rutgers. Yeah. And, he loved Brian. Brian was a workhorse for them, especially his senior year. In the playoffs down there at MetLife, and we were really excited to get him up here. He really kind of established himself halfway through his freshman year, and then was our starter, as a sophomore and a junior. When he went down his senior year, it was tough, right? You never want to see that. I think everybody was kind of holding their breath, hoping that it wasn't going to be a season ender. But credit to him and his just approach, because as soon as, it was determined, what the severity of the injury was, I think the very next day he and his dad were in my office, and they're like, Coach, we want to come back. Like he doesn't want to end his career on these terms. And I told him, like, hey, we were with you in the beginning, and we're going to see this thing through to the end with you. Like, we want you back. So, he really worked his butt off this past year and a half to, I think, come back, stronger than he was before the injury, and, I think it also says a lot just about him and his mentality and his dedication to the game and our program, because, it's not like he was coming back into an easy situation, right? He was coming off an injury. He was coming back into a situation where the guy that had stepped in his absence, had a really successful season, was the MVP of the league. And, but Brian never, wavered in his commitment to overcome this adversity, and I think we're really excited for him. Obviously, he's very deserving of this nomination through the Mayo Clinic, and I think he's earned this nomination, and I think he'll continue to earn it through the rest of the season.
Yeah, I was taking a look at the numbers. He definitely, thrived. Those first couple of years up, I said until his junior year. He was just, ranking up there, touchdowns, said, especially I think his junior year. So, I mean, it's great to see, again, him back on the field. And, just switching to the defense, Coach Gardner, experienced group as well. Can you talk about them? Senior Garrett McCarthy, Sam Athey, Lloyd King, Margie Limba, and Nate Bresson said those guys, Nate Bresson leads you in sacks, and then the other guys, said as well as, up there in the number of tackles. Just if you want to, just describe their performance as well so far this season.
Yeah, the guys that really stir the drink for us on defense. I mean, we have 3 fifth-year seniors that are back that are all really talented, like all conference level football players. Sam Athey is our starting safety. He's a captain for us. He was a first-team all-conference honoree in 2019. He's back as a fifth-year senior. He makes a lot of calls, a lot of adjustments for us. We ask him to do a lot in the run game and in the pass game. So we put a lot on his plate. Nate Bresson has been a 4-year starter for us at the end. He's an all-conference, honoree as well. He's a kid who's, probably competing for, D lineman of the year in our league. He's as good as our league has to offer. He's a guy that gets after the quarterback. He's dominant in the run game, and he just really elevates the level of play of people around him. Right. And then Xavier Jones is a 5th-year senior cornerback for us, who's a returning starter as well from Arizona. So, those guys coupled along with guys like Lloyd King, another senior, right? Garrett McCarthy, senior, Kevin Porch, Joe Quidadamo, Rudy Holland, Justin Levski. I mean, we've got a lot of experience on that side of the ball. And, the youth that we have on that side of the ball is very, very talented. Right. They just haven't played a lot of football because we didn't have a season last year. So, Merge Malumba was an early enrollee freshman, who plays outside linebacker for us. Mike Connors is a junior who played a little bit his freshman year prior to COVID, who plays linebacker for us as well. And we've got a number of guys that will rotate in, and I think we got a good culture on that side of the ball of accountability and effort. And obviously it shows on Saturdays. So, I don't think last week was our best performance, but, I think the guys know what it takes to be successful, and they hold each other to that standard, which is how you breed success.
Great. I know your main focus, of course, Coach Gardner, is at Bentley this upcoming weekend. I wanted to ask you, just when you look at the schedule, after this weekend versus Assumption University, under the lights, I mean, that's going to be great on October 9th. September 25th, then October 9th at American International College, then October 16th versus St. Anselm College, the Battle of the Bronze Hawk and homecoming weekend, which I'm sure is a big deal, said on campus. And then October 23rd versus the University of New Haven, October 30th at Pace University, November 6th versus Franklin Pierce, and then finishing it up, wrapping it up November 13th at Southern Connecticut University. Just wanted to get your thoughts just on that, on the schedule, Coach Gardner.
Yeah, I mean, the NE10 right now, our league is super competitive. Everybody, has a chance to win every weekend. There's no off weeks, it's going to be a dogfight here all the way through November to see who wins our league. This weekend is the first weekend of conference games so it's really, what you did these last 2 weeks was great, but this is how you're going to win the conference, how you're going to earn a spot in the playoffs. So it starts now, and we're going to play, the defending conference champion, this weekend at Bentley. So, obviously we have a huge one. I think it's their alumni weekend as well. And a big rival school of ours. They're close geographically. We're both high academic institutions. There's a lot of history there. So it's going to be a really special atmosphere this weekend. But not looking ahead, obviously, but we've got another tough one the very following weekend, right? Where we host Assumption, who's a team that's been a perennial, league favorite in years past and have gone to the playoffs recently. And, we'll have our bye week right after them. So, but yeah, week in and week out in this league, it's super competitive. There's so much talent. The schools have done a great job of committing to football. I've been fortunate to be in this league for the last 13 years, both as an assistant and as a head coach, and to see it grow and see the dedication to football and the resources and the commitment to it has been awesome because it's elevated our league and the programs within it. So it's going to be a grind, right? And but it's a week
Yeah,
to week deal, and right now, obviously, we're all focused on Bentley.
that's great. I just wanted to ask you, it said 17, I think I jotted down 17 players from the state of New Jersey. And, you recruited from all over. I was looking at the roster. I mean, I think it's New York, Massachusetts. I think even Alabama, Rhode Island, North Carolina, Connecticut, Maryland. You even have a player from Israel. So, I mean, you're all over the map. I had to ask you just in terms of that, I mean, once I guess a football season or even during the course of a football season, you're always out there, said recruiting. I had to ask you about that aspect of, as well, Coach Gardner.
Yeah, well, with regards to the overall roster, I mean, we're a high academic institution, so we're very fortunate that we attract some really well-rounded student athletes, right, from all over. So that's what's allowed us to expand outside of Massachusetts or even New England, for that matter. We have a beautiful campus. We play at a high level of D2 scholarship football, and we're very closely situated to Boston, right? So there's a lot of drive to be able to bring student athletes to this area, whether it's academically or athletically, or obviously both in our case. So we're fortunate from that standpoint. Obviously, the more notoriety our league has and the better the football gets, the more national awareness there is as well, right? With regards to New Jersey, I mean, obviously I'm a Jersey guy at heart. I was born and raised in Hunterdon County. And so obviously I'm very familiar with the landscape down there. It's great high school football. There's a ton of high school football down there. And from that standpoint, I mean, there's no Division II football in the state of New Jersey from a college or university standpoint. So, if you're not going to Rutgers or Monmouth, if you're going to play scholarship football, you're leaving the state, right? So that's where it's interesting because it's close enough geographically where those kids, I think, still get the feel like, they're going away to go to college, but they're also, able to still have their family and friends come and see them play a ton of football and get a great degree at the same time. So, so that's why it's been a great draw for us down there.
Just have okay. What happened here? Okay, I'm sorry about that, Coach. My AirPods kicked in. I apologize for that. Go ahead. I'm sorry if you can repeat that.
You want me to talk about New Jersey?
Yeah, about New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, I'm from New Jersey originally, so I'm really familiar with the landscape down there. Born and raised in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, and when I was an assistant coach here at Stonehill, I was responsible for recruiting my home state. And, there's no Division II football in New Jersey. So if you're playing scholarship football, if you're not going to, Rutgers or Monmouth, right, you're getting out of the state, and it's far enough, we're far enough away where those student athletes are still getting the experience of going away to college, right? But we're also close enough geographically where, their family and friends can still come and watch them play. And they're not like on the other side of the country, So, it's been a great, there's a ton of high school football down there, a ton of really quality programs. And the state is just so saturated with high schools that have football. So, we split up the state with 2 recruiting coaches, north and south, just because it's so saturated and there's so many quality programs and quality student athletes down there that it's just been a really great draw for us.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Hey, I wanted to ask you about your coaching staff. I said it takes a village. I said you rely on them quite a bit. Coach Gardner, I wanted to start with, of course, associate head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterbacks coach Tyler Moody. I think in his 11th season. So I mean, talk about the experience factor there. Your defensive coordinator and linebackers coach Kyle Jones in his 4th season. If you want to just start with those 2, Coach Gardner.
Yeah, Tyler was an assistant here with me at Stonehill under our previous head coach, and he coached the offensive line. He has a great football mind. He's an out of the box thinker. He's very holistic in his approach in terms of like teaching the game of football and not getting tunnel vision in terms of how he coaches, each position. So when I was promoted to head coach here, he was a no-brainer candidate for me to elevate to the offensive coordinator position because I think we approach the game the same way, philosophically. So he's done a great job of building a culture on that side of the ball, of teaching the game of football, right, and building a system, right, especially. He started out as the offensive line coach. In the last couple of years, he actually has transitioned to the quarterbacks room. So, he's got a great feel up front with protections. And now, the last couple of years, he's done a great job of bringing the quarterbacks into the full spectrum of our offense, right? And obviously, you're seeing that in our production offensively, whether it's last year or these first two games of the season. So, yeah, he's been here for 11 years. He's recruited a lot of our student athletes, and it's great to have that continuity, not only on our staff, but, on the offensive side of the ball where guys can develop under a scheme and we can recruit to a particular scheme and system. So that's been great. Kyle Jones, our defensive coordinator and linebackers coach in his fourth season. Kyle and I actually went to the same college. I'm a little older than he is, but we had the same alma mater. So same, similar background in terms of our playing experience and the system that we played under defensively, as we were both linebackers in college. But he just does a great job of bringing great energy, and really gets our guys going and holds them accountable. And our guys really buy into that. Like, they really love that when people push them and challenge them, because they know that they're invested in them and it brings out the best in them. So, he's a Connecticut guy. He's done a great job recruiting the state of Connecticut for us. So we're really, really, really excited to have him on board, and to be able to elevate him to the defensive coordinator position is very well deserving on his end.
It's terrific. Just looking at the staff here, is that you have a great blend of experienced guys, and I saw even, guys who are in their first season as coaches as well.
Yeah.
And I wanted to point out, especially a Jersey guy, Marquise Spence, who, went to Merrimack, is
Yep.
it also a Paramus Catholic grad? I mean, that's really, that's great to see, but I had to ask you about that as well, Coach Gardner.
Yeah.
I said, just being able to merge, said, both of the sides there, if you can
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, COVID brought some challenges, like in our profession. I think, there's some people that had to either step away from the game or were able to have other opportunities, and that's typical for our profession. So I think at the end of the day, it's important that the continuity. Like, there might be some new coaches that come and go, and this is the same with every program. But it's about having a structure and having a system and culture in place that new coaches can come in and buy into. So it's not complete turnover for our players every year, right? So, obviously with Marquise Spence, Jersey guy, played at Paramus Catholic, coaches our receivers, was a very successful player in our league. Nick Flores, our defensive line coach, is actually also went to Paramus Catholic.
Oh, okay.
And he's another Jersey guy. He recruits South Jersey for us and coaches our D line, like I had said. So both those guys, have done a great job of getting here, investing in our players, and helping us be successful early on here this season. So, but we have a good blend of experience. John Gomes is our special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. He's actually an alum of our program. So when I was my first year here at Stonehill in 2009 was actually John's freshman year as a receiver for us. And when he graduated, he at that time owned all of our receiving records. So it's cool to have someone, come and give back to the program that he was a part of as a player and now as a coach. And it's a great resource for me, right? And also for our players, right? To have someone that, literally walked in their shoes a couple of years earlier as an alum. So, but we have a really good blend of experience, of turnover. We have some newer faces and some newer coaches. It's all about hiring good people that work hard and invest in our players. So it's worked out really well for us.
That's terrific. As you said, you've been a part of the Stonehill, Skyhawks program, football program for so long, said over a decade. I'm just wondering, especially from that first year you took over as head coach, what you've, learned during that first season, coach, and now as you, entered this season, just what comes to your mind? I'm just wondering about that.
How long is this podcast? uh, uh, I think going from being a coordinator, I was a defensive coordinator prior to being the head coach. I mean, there's just so many things that you can't learn until you are sitting in this chair, right? There's so many things that you have to experience, that you're going to have to handle yourself. That as a coordinator, it never really comes across your desk, And I thought, Rob Talley, my predecessor, like he did a really good job of preparing me, that last year, building into to me, applying for the job and going through the process. And, I think credit to Stonehill. It wasn't a situation where they just handed me the job either. Like they posted it and they brought in outside candidates, and I went through the full interview process. And I think what that did for me personally, it made me think about things that I wasn't prepared to think about prior to that process, right? And it made me be organized and put things in place that, hey, if this is how I'm going to run this program, this is how I want to do it. This is how we need to do it. This is what's worked for us in the past. This is what hasn't worked for us in the past. And being able to present that and articulate that to the administration here was huge. Obviously I've been here for 13 years. So I've been able to see this program grow, us build a new facility. I've built really strong connections with our alumni base. And I think I know what makes us successful and how we need to continue to drive that, that ship towards success. So, I mean, obviously the one thing you do miss, I think sometimes you miss not having to deal with all the administrative stuff and just be able to coach ball. Yeah. But I think that's what's nice about our level, right? I think at this level, like I can be a position coach as well as being a head coach. And I think I would go crazy if I wasn't able to do that. Yeah. So it's great because you get to run the program the way that it needs to be run, but you also get to coach the guys up and still coach X's and O's and do the stuff that you love to do on top of it.
Yeah, those are great points you made, Coach Gardner, because I mean, under Coach Helly, you were able special teams, linebackers, defensive coordinator. So I'm sure that was a great, stepping, said board for you, in terms of taking over as head coach. Just got a couple more. Can't thank you for the time, Coach Gardner. You talked about administration, and I wanted to ask you about, the support from them, athletic department, director of athletics, Dean O'Keefe, and also President Reverend John Denning, CFC. Can you talk about them as well? And just, again, it takes, that, component of, both athletics and administration to have, that culture, build that winning program. Can you talk about that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So, starting off with Dean O'Keefe, our athletic director here, the really neat thing about Dean is, he's a class of 1994 Stonehill alum. He was a soccer player while he was here. So again, to have someone that knows Stonehill, that loves Stonehill, that literally again walked in the same shoes as our student athletes, that lived it, is unique, right? And it's a huge asset for us to have someone that's that vested in our school and our athletic department in that role, right? So he's constantly poking his head in my office every day, asking how I'm doing, asking me how the program's doing, how preparation's going, at every game, and I think obviously for any program to be successful, you need that support, from the athletic department, because football is just a different beast, right? There's so many student athletes, and you only play one game a week. It's so different than every other sport, right? Yeah. So, and then, with regards to the administration and Father Denning, our president, they're just so visible and so hands-on, with athletics. Father Denning actually sits on the NCAA, president's board. So he'll poke by every now and then and update me on some possible rule changes or, things that are coming down the pipe that I need to be made aware of. But again, just being present and being a face and a name for our student athletes and being approachable is huge, right? You feel like what you do as a coach or as a player is important, and there's a lot of value to it, to your institution. And that's definitely the culture that Stonehill has created. It's a great community.
That's terrific. Facilities are also, as I said, play a critical role. I mean, tremendous, at Stonehill College with WB Mason Stadium and the Sally Blair Ames Sports Complex. Can you talk about that as well? And I was reading, it's a very poignant story as far as that football field. It carries a lot of significance. As we marked, said the 20th anniversary, said the September 11th terrorist attacks on America. The Timothy J. Coughlin Memorial Field. If you can talk about that, that's I think definitely have to
For
talk about
sure.
that and describe that.
Yeah, the sports complex and W. Mason Stadium are obviously just huge investments, right, from the school towards our athletic department, towards our football program. Obviously, we spend a lot of time and do a lot of work in those two facilities. So to have state of the art, facilities is a huge asset for our students, our student athletes, our coaching staff, our alumni, just to be proud of what we are providing for our student athletes and coaches, right, to do the jobs that they're hired to do. With regards to the Coughlin family, obviously Timothy J. Coughlin was a Stonehill student athlete, football student athlete, who was tragically killed in the September 11th terrorist attacks. His family have been super involved with Stonehill College ever since his passing. Every year they do a fundraising golf outing on Long Island in his hometown. I've gone to it a number of years. It's gone on for 20 years now, which is probably double the lifespan of what normal memorial golf outings are expected. But it raises a lot of money for, at the time, the field, also for the sports complex. Right outside of our locker room, we have a plaque that's dedicated to Tim. And his favorite saying was "play hard." We have a sign that, a tin sign that the guys tap, on the way out to the field every day and the way back in every day that says "play hard," with Tim's, kind of signature Shamrock logo. And obviously, it also raises money for our football scholarships and helping others achieve that same Stonehill education that Timmy loved and valued so much. So it's just really cool to have, it's not just a great facility, a beautiful facility, but there's some significance behind it, right? There's family behind it. There's love behind it, and obviously some history behind it as well. So I think it makes it that much more of a special place.
It's great. Just, I don't want to forget about family as well. I said your wife Stephanie, your son Camden. I've talked to many coaches. This profession, this job is very difficult. I mean, so many hours spent in the office, on the football field. Game film. Working with other, the rest of the coaching staff, administration. Can you talk about the support you've received from your family, Coach Gardner?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with my family is the fact that I've been able to be in one place in this profession for 13 years is obviously a rarity. It's allowed me to have a family, right, and to plant my roots and to buy a home and to get married and have a son and not be bouncing around city to city every other year, so that's been special. I think, Stonehill is a very community-based atmosphere. Like, people, know my son's name, they know my wife's name, they see them, they say hi to them, they know, their birthdays, and they, the other day was my son's 4th birthday, and the whole team just knew, and they signed a card for him, and people got him some presents and stuff, and just went above and beyond. So I just think, the big thing is to have a community that's caring and trusting and loving is huge for anybody in our profession, right? Because you do spend a lot of time in the office and away from your family and away from your home. So you need to feel that love when you're not there too, and for me personally, I think, it's really important to have a significant other, like Stephanie, who is insanely supportive and is understanding of what the demands of my job is. So she makes it easy on me to be a dad and be a husband and be a head football coach. She brings Cam to practice a lot. He comes to every game. She'll, just find ways to kind of keep me grounded, right, and so that I don't get tunnel vision. And obviously she runs the household for me too, because I'm not there as much as I'd like to be. So it's really important to have a support system away from football, so that you have that balance. Because at the end of the day, I want to be a great head coach, but I also want to be I want to be an even better husband and father at the end of the day. So,
Yeah,
and I want our players to know that and to see that. And I think that they do. You know?
it's wonderful. Hey, you're a 2008 graduate of Western New England University. And both academically, athletically, you were able to flourish. Bachelor's degree in sports management. You have a master's degree as well in athletic administration from Endicott College in 2014. I'm wondering, not only playing the game but now coaching as well. What makes the game of football so special, to you, Coach Gardner?
I think what makes football so special is, you look at a football team or you look in our locker room, right? And we've got 105 guys on our team, right? And they're from different states, different backgrounds, different religions, different ethnicities, right? And they're all, it's 105 individuals who all come together and they're a part of something bigger than the individual, right? We constantly talk to our guys about what we refer to as the arrow concept, right? Like everybody in that locker room is their own kind of individual arrow, right? And the team is the giant arrow. And what culture does and what a team does is it aligns everybody in the same direction towards the same goal, and I think that's what's so special about football because it brings people together. It aligns people towards common goals and mindsets. And I think, if our country took a page out of that playbook, we'd probably be in a great and a much better place. So I think that's what's so special about football, right? It's not the individual; it's about the greater good of the entirety of the group, right? And that's what's so special about our sport.
Well said. Okay, final question, Coach Gardner. Always ask everybody this, players and coaches. What is your message, for those younger athletes watching this or going to watch this, and also for people who want to break into the coaching ranks as well?
Yeah, I think my message would be to find your passion and prioritize your life, right? I think sometimes people spend too much time on something that they're not truly passionate about. I think it's first you have to prioritize, your life and what's important at that point in time. If you're a high school student, right, and you love football, well, then you need to prioritize the academics and preparing to be the best football player that you can be. And sometimes things have to be sacrificed for that, but sometimes you have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains. And I think if more people kind of look themselves in the mirror and prioritize their lives, they could dedicate, the time more properly, more efficiently to what was really important to them. I think sometimes we get too tied up in, looking at our phones and being on social media and getting tied up in things that we can't control. So I just think my best, piece of advice would be to control the things that you can control and be really great at that. Prioritize your life and dedicate yourself to your priorities.
Well said. Okay, Coach Gardner, the floor is yours. If I've left anything out here, you're more than welcome to add.
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity. Love what you're doing for football in general, and I appreciate your time and your interest in me and our program, and just really excited to represent Stonehill football and our players and our coaches and our institution, here in this forum, because I think we have a really special place here. I'm really proud to be a part of it. It's definitely a part of me, and I feel like I'm a big part of it. And I just looking forward to the future. But we're going to focus 1 week at a time, and we have a big one this weekend. So I'm really excited to be able to take the field with our guys this weekend.
Thank you, Coach Gardner, for again the incredible opportunity to interview you and talk about the Stonehill College Skyhawks football program. Wishing you, the rest of the coaching staff and players, all the best as you move forward here in the 2021 regular season.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Appreciate your time.